good doctor?
I used to be. I won an award once from the mayor. Had an expensive frame.
They're all gonna die.
The day I get out of prison, my own brother picks me up in a police car.
It's the Al Travis Show. I'd like to have the best guests on as possible. This guy made the news big time last night, and we got him on the show today. He's Representative Tim O'Driscoll. Representative, how are you today?
And yourself.
I'm sorry, say that again? My buttons were wrong.
I said, I am well, and yourself.
I am doing well, but of course I've got to work every day for forever as far as I know. The news today is you've decided not to run for your seat again up there in St. Cloud, the St. Cloud area. You're not running for that. Can I ask just an inside question? How come?
You know, it's not that I don't like doing it. It's not that, I'm afraid of not winning or any of these kinds of reasons. It's for the right decisions. It's for the right reasons. For folks who haven't really known my background, who listen to the show, I started out in elected office in the early 1990s. I had 2.5 years on the Sartell City Council, had a job transfer that took me to St. Paul, came back here to the area in 2000, and a lot of folks said, you should run back again as the council and the spots you had. I said, I'm not going to do that. I said, that would just be too presumptuous and too, quite honestly, egotistical. It's like, well, I left and now you owe me a job again. I said, I want to get back and I want to get connected with the community. And in 2002, I ran for city council, did a 4-year gig.
Okay.
And in 2006, was elected mayor, did a 4-year gig. 2010 was elected to the legislature, and I've served there for the last 15 years. And then 2026 will bring me to the end of the term for 16 years. So I have over 26 years of public service, and I've loved it. It's not always been good. It's not always been easy. It's not always been fun. But I always look at who I'm trying to help and where things are going. And I'll be, my early 60s at the end of next year. Not that that's old. I'm in good health. I want to be able to do some other things. I have always had this side checklist of things that I want to do.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, for me, it doesn't even have, the paycheck isn't necessarily a money paycheck. It's giving back into the community in different ways like I have always done my entire life.
All right. That neck of the woods, though, where you're from, just in a bigger picture look, you had Senator Howe. He's no longer going to run again. Dameth will run, but she's going to run for the governorship. You're gone. Are you guys on both sides of that Senate district? Or is that the two of you? Am I getting that correct? I might be wrong.
Yeah, so what happens is all three of the two senators and two representatives are not seeking re-election in District 13.
So it seems like a bit of a void. I'm going to give you kudos for doing it this early so that, the process can work itself out. Does that worry you at all? That literally the entire representation, not that you won't have others step up, but you guys have massive amounts of seniority that's going out the window.
Well, you know what? That happened kind of at the time that I got here, too.
Okay.
Dan Severson left, and Michelle Fischbach was a senator, and we had, a very young and newly elected, there was a DFL member, Larry Hosh, who was the former mayor of St. Joe in the legislature, and then he left a few years after that. And yes, there were a few year gaps that were in there. But you know what? This is a situation that's not uncommon for some of the metro districts to have brand new leadership quite regularly. Sure. And the reason for that is they're swing districts. And so Jeff and myself and Lisa will be around to be able to talk to folks and to answer questions, whoever takes these jobs, to be able to give them background. It's not like we're closing the door and closing shop and moving to, Australia or something.
No. I understand that. I appreciate, again, I think the idea that you get out early enough, this isn't a last-minute decision. This gives everybody time to ramp up, and those that want to jump in, jump in. I'm not ripping that at all. You are going through your next session, so you're still going to be around through at least, what would that be? You would be through February, March, April?
Well, no, what would end up happening would be, the term goes from January 1st of an odd-numbered year in the Minnesota House to the end of December in an even-numbered year in a 2-year cycle. So it would be this time in 2026 that I would be wrapping up, putting stuff in boxes in my office, if you will, getting ready for the 31st after the elections, and then shortly after that in January, new members would be sworn in.
All right, fair enough. Your thoughts? I don't know what number you are. A guy should really have like one of them take a number deal. Does it seem like a lot of people in the Senate and the House have resigned? Is it more than the normal allotment? I mean, I don't know. Everybody on this program, but a lot of the folks who are on my program aren't running again.
It has nothing to do with you, Al, just so you know.
No, I'm just saying the numbers can't work out the way. Is this a disproportionate number of folks retiring in a session? I mean, you have Pappas and some other very long-term folks in the Senate that have already announced they're not running.
The institution is at 201 members strong, right? There's 67 senators. There are 134 House members, and there's constantly I don't want to call it a churning because that's not a good word. Mm-hmm. There's constantly a refreshing of who goes into the legislature, and I think that that's good. I think that it's good to have some people who are seasoned individuals, and there's going to be some folks around that have been around for a while who are going to be able to pick up the reins and to do things. I am humbled by the fact that I've received as many phone calls and text messages and emails and inquiries and stops in the grocery store and things. What happens quite regularly anyhow, but I mean, it's amped up extensively with the announcement in the last, 48 hours here of my intention not to seek re-election. But, people are saying, gosh, now what are we going to do? It's like, quite honestly, God will provide the right answer. Sure. I'm a very faith-filled person, and I believe that God will provide the answer for all of us and all of our problems. We just need to have trust and faith.
I don't doubt that at all. I'm with you 100%. Will you, well, I suppose it matters who, do you have an idea of folks now already thinking of trying to get that seat that you will vacate? Will you be thinking you will endorse somebody if it's the right person comes along, or are you going to stay out 100%? What are your thoughts on the next person?
That is a great question, and I have not given that a lot of thought.
All right.
Because I'm busy like everybody else, right? This announcement came between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I told myself I was going to talk to my extended family. They were going to be here and just, give their thoughts on what was going on. And they said, it's going to be your decision. And we know that you wanted to do other things. And we know that you wanted to, a family that lives across the country. It's like, you come and see us more often and be involved with what's going on. And that's appealing to me as well, to be able to do that. You don't always have the flexibility when you're in, working, and I believe this wholeheartedly, that if you're going to be in the legislature, it's not your full-time job. Yep. You need to be doing something else outside of the legislature. It just keeps you more connected with what, Mr. and Mrs. America and Mr. and Mrs. Minnesota are experiencing as far as employment and things and activities, in addition to your legislative stuff. So it'll put a little more time in my calendar and allowing me to be able to do some of the other things I want to do.
Well, since you announced your retirement, I did talk to my brother-in-law, who evidently went to high school with you. And you probably saw the same meme I did. If you were ever someone who could throw a tight spiral, and my brother-in-law says you could, is it anything to the rumor that I just started that you'll be trying out for the Minnesota Vikings in their starting quarterback spot?
Well, first of all, your brother-in-law's recollections of that are not correct that I can throw a tight spiral. I might be able to differentiate a football from a soccer ball. I'm being somewhat facetious, but
so that rumor may not be true that I just started?
That is exactly it. But here's the other part of that.
Good.
Josh, could I do any worse than we've got going on right now?
Hey, and the checks are bigger. I'm going to tell you, you'll make much more as the reserve quarterback for Minnesota than we're working for our house. Got to go to break. We got some real stuff to talk about. Not that this wasn't, but stuff going on in the state. We'll do that right after this with Representative Tim O'Driscoll and possible next quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. Next.
When the stakes are high at the Minnesota Capitol, you need more than a lobbyist. You need a partner. At Momentum Advocacy, we bring nearly 90 years of combined experience in government relations, public affairs, and strategic communications. From nonprofits to national corporations, we help organizations navigate Minnesota's political landscape with integrity, insight, and results. Whether you need legislative champions or headlines, Momentum Advocacy delivers. For more, visit momentum-advocacy.com. Momentum Advocacy, your friends at the Capitol.
Think about it. Now that school's back in session, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
you kidding me?
You know that comment you said to the radio? The thing that we got wrong?
Clearly, Brussels sprouts are the worst vegetable.
Call us and let the world know your thoughts. 855-257-7469. That's 855-ALS Show.
We've got him, Representative Tim O'Driscoll, making the news this week, saying he's not going to run for re-election to his seat here in 2026. So he did say, at least he's promised me so far, he will continue to do the show until the ink dries on his contract with the Minnesota Vikings. So I appreciate him doing that.
Yep, every team is a solid water boy, and I am in the running.
You're right there. I want to be on the team.
Yep. Adam Sandler and I, we've got that sort of kindred spirit there.
There you go. Let me ask you this, because I think you're going to agree with me. I don't think, well, some people don't, but I don't care. Since last we talked, the president went after the Governor Walz using some language that, personally, I don't use in my home. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not going to condone it. Walz go after him about MRIs. Then it's all Somalis are garbage people. I don't like the rhetoric that is coming out of the president of the United States. It, on a couple levels, sir, ruins his argument about coming in here and finding out what's going on, because now it's all a racial thing. The last 5 to 10 days has been horrific for the state of Minnesota on a national level as far as what the conversation is. This isn't about the land of 10,000 lakes coming and retiring and the lovely area we are to live in. Everything is about fraud, waste, and abuse. How does it stop? How do we get a handle on it, sir?
First of all, I believe that Trump is winning in what he's doing. And the pushback tells me that from a lot of people, right?
Yep.
It just, I believe, compromises the message. My mom and dad told me when I was a kid growing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
My dad said, Tim, you get out there and you fight hard and you defend family and you take care of those people who can't take care of themselves. You don't let people bully people around. Now get out there and do that, get out there. So I'm all, full of energy and just ready to go out the door. And my mother would yell out the door, but do it diplomatically. And I think that's what we're losing right now. When you're winning the game, why do you have to double down on that? Just continue to stay on the high ground of the things that are mm-hmm. what we need to do, enforcing and following our laws. People have been so, it's been so foreign to people that we would actually enforce our laws over the last number of years, that when a president who is the chief of law enforcement officer in the three branches of the government says, I'm going to enforce the laws, it's like, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you? Those are just, words on a page that somebody passed, but we really don't want them to be held accountable for those kinds of things. Yes, we do. That's why we have laws. And that's why we have a legislative process to change those laws. We just don't ignore them if we don't like them.
I love that idea, because you're absolutely right. Because we have not enforced these laws for years, the fact that ICE goes and picks up some guy in St. Paul, it seems so draconian. It's like, those people in the ICE uniforms are doing what we hired them to do, and that's follow our laws, and yet we go after them. We are way out of whack, and I think you're right, because it just seems so new to us these days that, wow, we're going to follow the law. On the idea of what's wrong in Minnesota, I want to throw this at you. Today's news story is about a statewide moratorium. Evidently, Department of Human Services has put a moratorium on group homes for disabled for 2 years, because they want to read out the fraud. No one had been talking about state group homes and the fraud yet. Is this Walz getting in front of this? Is this another one of those that is going to be a massive fraud thing we haven't heard about? It seems so strange to me that this is the first thing they stop. And for 2 years, for heaven's sakes. And who they're stopping it on? The disabled. Is this a good call?
So I'm going to answer your question this way. Our number one problem right now with fraud, I believe, is that our technology systems, our computer systems, our infrastructure systems in health and human services, which is one of the largest pieces of the pie next to K-12 education in the state of Minnesota, you add those two together, and something like 70+% of all state spending goes in just those two areas.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the situation. We are running programs for people who apply for benefits on a system that's called Maxis. Maxis was put into play probably the late 70s to early 80s. My mom used to work for social services. She worked on that system.
Wow.
That system is still in play today in the Department of Health and Human Services. As a matter of fact, I had a group of health folks from Stearns County meet with me a few years ago, and the Director of Human Services said, we're working on an antiquated system in the state of Minnesota that's a green monochrome screen. I said, you're talking about Maxis, aren't you? Her head spun around and said, how do you know about Maxis? I said, my mother, who's been retired for over 25 years, used to work on that system.
But
The words out of her mouth were, do you think your mom would like a job back? Because we certainly could use her. She understands the system.
But whose fault is that? If we're going to say that it's the antiquated computer systems that are helping this fraud and all the rest of this happen, we've had the same folks in charge for the better part of, 20 years?
Agreed.
Why is that not? Why are we using that computer system?
So it's not just that system. I'm just giving you an example inside of a dynamic system of what's going on. It's not like that takes care of all ills and all problems. My larger point on this is if we can have systems that can better track people like we do today in the banking industry and in other areas to detect fraud, the initial investment that the state has to put into that has got to save us money on a go-forward basis. Where after 3 or 4 years you go, you know what, this doesn't seem to be adding up on what it was. We're chasing 2025 crime and nefarious activities with, Ronald Reagan technology.
See, it does make sense to me because on the health side of things, right? I had a doctor I went to, and I gave the nurses quite a hard time about having to get on the scale every time I went there in the height thing. It's not changing that much, let me tell you the number, and they were just kind of giving me a hard time. I go to a different doctor next time, just change of healthcare services, whatever. And in the notes was, he'll give you a hard time about weight and height. The nurse knew about it. They have everything they need to know about Al health-wise, but we can't tell that one person is under investigation for fraud in this department. We can't cross-reference that with them getting a check in another department. That seems almost unbelievable to me.
So we do have this. So I'm going to tie that back into the November forecast number.
Mm-hmm.
We see a deficit on the out years, right?
Yep.
It's continuing to be there. But we have in front of us an immediate surplus. Wouldn't it be a novel idea to take some of that immediate surplus that's in front of us and upgrade these systems so that we can track fraud, detect it, stop it, and save people money, and gosh, maybe pay down that deficit on the backside and save taxpayers some money? What a great idea.
It seems novel. It seems a little put the cart behind the horse kind of thing, because if we had spent the money to upgrade our systems, maybe we wouldn't have billions of dollars going out the door in the last 5-6 years. I throw it out there as an opportunity. I got to fly, my friend. I appreciate you, and I hope you hang with us for as long as possible, and the Vikings don't pick you up too soon, and we can keep you coming back. Fair enough?
Thanks. Have a good one.
Appreciate it. He's Representative Tim O'Driscoll on the Al Travis Show.